Hello, welcome to the garden. One more time. It's kind of I'd been thinking about doing this show for a while, and then a lot of things, all sorts of lined up, and I'm going to cover a lot of topics today. I'm going to wait for you all to get in. That takes a little bit of doing, but basically what I'm going to be talking to you today about is I got a lot of notes from people that I read and have been around people that I read who are feeling at when I was a kid we used to call being at sixes and sevens about what's happening in the world, and I hope that I can help people deal with that. I'm going to give you some suggestions, and I'm going to answer some questions that were left on my community page, and I'm going to at least wait till one smiley face shows up. The viewers are starting to come in. Hi, Karen. Hi, Karen, for being here. And I'm just going to name check people for just a little bit to give us a chance to get into this, because I have some things that are really designed to help us. And now is a time of fear. And one of the things I've known for years is fear is FEAR. Face everything and recover, or F everything and run. And I'm going to guarantee you right now, the effing everything and running, you don't got track shoes good enough. So you're just going to have to try and find a way to face things. But you don't have to face things alone, and you don't have to face things and being overwhelmed. And what I got was some notes from people saying they were feeling overwhelmed at work. They'd go someplace, they'd be thrown into a complete panic. And I know my heart goes out to everyone who's dealt with war, had someone in a war. I lost a very close friend in Vietnam, and the last summer before he went over, and he and I both kind of knew he wasn't coming back, and it was very difficult. That part of it was difficult in the summer, but we finally said, okay, we're just going to have a good time now. We're not going to worry about what's out in the future. We're going to deal with what we have right now. That's a big part of getting past your fear. And he's one of my ghost stories, except it's an angel story. The day he died in Vietnam, I was at a party near my campus, and I looked out and I saw him standing on the patio in his uniform. And I knew he shouldn't be there because he's supposed to be in Vietnam. He certainly wasn't in Dallas, Texas. And I knew immediately at that point he was gone, that he'd come back to tell me. So I just left the party, just walked home because it was close to the campus, walked in my room, and all of a sudden my room was filled with the brightest light I've ever seen in my life. And it was an angel, sort of the archetypical little Irish kid angel that I would see. And I said, Tommy's gone. And she said, yes, and he wanted us to come and tell you so that you wouldn't worry, and that he was fine and he'd already crossed. Which was his concern, was sort of getting locked up in some strange country. And I just laid down and went to sleep. Normally when I have bad news like that, I just, I was like all of 19, 18. And then when I woke up the next day, I remembered that I'd seen her, I remember how bright she was. And that he seemed to be at peace. And about 3 days later, my mother called me and she said, how you doing? It's the middle of the afternoon. And for those of you who don't remember landline phone charges, you didn't call people in the middle of the afternoon. And I said, why? What's going on? And she said, and I looked, and finally she was kind of hemming and hawing. And I said, Tommy's dead, I know. And she said, okay. And she said she'd go to the funeral for our family. So whenever wars start, I think about all the people who are going to have to face losing someone who's absolutely as marvelous as he was. And it seems so useless. And there is no making sense of it. There is just building on what you can do to help yourself. And so I want to read something I ran across, and I was going to bring this up in a show anyway. And it's a poem written by a guy named John Roedel, and I put his information in the description below so you can find this if you want to. And it goes, my brain and my heart are divorced. It happened about a decade ago, over who was to blame about the big mess I had become. Eventually, they couldn't be in the same room with each other. So now my head and my heart share custody of me. I stay in my brain during the week, and my heart gets me on the weekends. They never speak to one another. Instead, they give me the same note to pass to each other every week, and their notes send me into one another things, always about the same things. It was all your fault. On Sunday, my heart complains about how my head has let me down in the past. And on Wednesday, my head lists all the same times my heart has screwed me and screwed things up for me and things and how bad it's going to be in the future. They blame each other for the state of my life. There's a lot of yelling and crying. So, lately I've been spending a lot of time in my gut, who serves as my unofficial therapist. Most nights I sneak out of the window of my rib cage, slide down to my spine, collapse in this gut's plush leather chair. It's always open for me. And I just sit and sit and sit. Just last evening, my gut asked me if I was having such a hard time being caught between my head and my heart, and I nodded. I said, I don't know how I could live with either of them anymore. My heart is always sad about something that happened yesterday, and my head is always worried about something that may happen tomorrow. I just lamented. My gut squeezed my hand. I just can't live with the mistakes of my past and my anxiety in the future. In that case, my gut said, you should go stay in your lungs for a while. I was confused. The look on my face must have given it away. If you're exhausted about your heart's obsession with the fixed past and your mind's focused on an uncertain future, your lungs are the perfect place for you. There's no yesterday in your lungs, and there's no tomorrow there either. There's only now, only an inhale, only an exhale, only this very moment. There's only breath. And in that breath, you can rest while your heart and your head work their relationship out. That this morning, while my head was busy reading tea leaves and while my heart was staring at old photographs, I packed a little bag, walked up to the door of my lungs. But before I could even knock, she opened the door, and with a smile and as a gust of wind pushed up on me and embraced me, she said, "What took you so long?" And I can't tell you, when I read this, I thought, God, that so mirrors my life, because until I began to understand breath work and meditation and how that can help us, and that's where we need to go today. Now, I put that in there. There's a place you can go find that poem if you Google it. And there's a book I read, and this is the book I read that pushed me into understanding. It's called Innercise. You don't have to read the whole book, but he's got a lot of really interesting stuff in here. And one of the things, the thing that got me in that book is they did an experiment in California where they strapped people up and they had them do the 6 deep breaths, where you breathe in for 4, hold, and then you breathe out for 6. You breathe out more than you breathe in. You're just timing it that way. And after 6 deep breaths, your brain actually changes. They can watch it in the little wires they attach to you. And it changes from being reactive, which we need the reactive stuff. That's kind of how we survived. But we don't need it fired every day all the time. And what you can do is it changes it into a proactive brain. And you say, okay, how can I use that at work? There's one woman who said she was just panicking at work. You can always go to the restroom or somewhere and find a chance to take 6 deep breaths. So I'm going to tell you a story about 6 deep breaths. I had a young lawyer one time I'd read a woman friend of his who'd been at the wine place, and I was spot on, so he came and he sat down. Well, I don't know. He said, I don't know if I want to read it or whatever. I said, well, you can just sit and talk. What's going on? And we got to talking about things. And it ends up, because I worked in politics, I knew a lot of lawyers, and I actually knew the lawyer he worked with. And he's right. The guy's a thoroughgoing bastard. I mean, he was a mean man. I went and got a lot of money for him from politicians, but he only did that to try and control people. He wasn't nobody I'd bring home as a friend. Anyway, the guy said, I sit in the meetings when we're going over what's going on with the case, and I can feel his eyes going around the room. And when he fixes on me, even though I know what the answers are, I know what I'm supposed to say, it's just like he sucks all that right out of me, and I panic. And I said, well, I'm going to teach you what to do, and you're going to look at me like I'm nuts, and then you're going to try it once, and you're going to realize it works. So I taught him the 6 deep breaths. He did it right at my table right then. And he said, yeah, the room seems brighter. Things seem different. I said, next time you're going into a meeting with him, stop at the restroom, go in. You can do it in the time that you would think to be in the restroom anyway. Then come out and go into the meeting with a proactive mind instead of a reactive mind. And I didn't see the young man for a while. And then a couple months later, he showed up, and he looked very different. And I said, how you doing? And he said, I want to pay you a tip for the reading you did for me the other time. He said, I can give you enough money. And I said, why? And he said, I did it. I went in the restroom on the way to the meeting, and I did the breathing exercise. I went in the room, sat where I sit at the table when we look around. He looked around the table. He looked at me, and he said his face changed. It's like he knew he wasn't going to win. So he went around and found the next poor son of SOB that was on the table, and he went after him. And he said, so now I don't take it personally, and I know I'm not stupid, that I am prepared. And I said, and you're looking for a new job, aren't you? And he said, yep, I'm going to go to a different firm. But, so honest to God, guys, this works. And so I'm trying to figure out, there's a comment in the comments I don't understand. I'll have to go back and look at it. So that's the second part of my thing. Use your breath. Listen to what it says. When your head and your heart are fighting, go into your lungs. Your lungs only have now, and that's what we need to deal with right now. It's only now. If you're watching the news or projecting all kinds of things, a lot of those things could happen. A lot of them couldn't. But what we need to do now is to get ready to live with our own points of light, because this is going to create a sense of darkness across the world, and we all need to fight with our light. Which brings me to my third story of the day. I have a good friend, and she lives in Colorado, and she called me up the other day, and she didn't call me up. She texted me in the morning and said, when you're up, give me a call. So I called her, and she's not the sort to have lucid dreams and vision. She can be a very good reader. She doesn't do that often either, but she said she was asleep, and she was in this dream. She was with 7 other people, and they went into a Louisiana bayou, a swamp. And she said it was the darkest place she'd ever been, and it was daylight before they got in there. They were on this little shallow boat, and they went up to what looked like a rickety old house, and it was a bar. And they got out of the boat, and she realized she had a cape on. And she realized underneath the cape she had a small sword or a dagger, and it was glowing. And they went into the bar, and she said there were these beings in there. She said it wasn't like the bar scene in Star Wars, but she said you could just tell there was something really off about these people. And all of a sudden, a battle started. And trust me, she is not a person who's going to go stab anybody with a knife, but she got in this battle, and she realized that they had archangels and other beings. There were 7 archangels and 7 other beings, and the 7 of them. And they got in a fight with these guys, and they won. And when they walked out of the bar, it's like all the darkness and the dankness and the feeling of being in that bayou had gone away, and there was light. And she looked at what she recognized was Archangel Michael, and she said, we did this with this little sword. And he said, whenever you need to pull out your light and shine it against the darkness. And when you all do that, and when you do it in unison, we can defeat it. And he said, remember that. So that's what her dream was about, and that's what she wanted to make sure that I knew. And it's true. We all have that little sword inside ourselves, that little piece of light that we can bring out. And you can't bring it out if you're panicked and freaking and you're climbing into the darkness. That's why the sign I put on the announcement that this show is going on is do not feed the fears. Thank you. And you don't feed your fear. Feed what's positive for you. So we're going to look into that. And also a follow-up. It's not another story, but it is kind of a story. Jophn Van Wyck, who I did the show with last week, who's the ley line healer, he did a show. He's done a show. It's now up on David Johnson's YouTube channel. Go look at it. I have not seen it yet. I was supposed to be able to see it live last night, but the live didn't work, and I can't blame David for that because we certainly know I've had more than my share of problems with lives. But it's going to be interesting. So if you wondered, what's this guy doing on the mountain? He was leading a meditation. He was pulling in the entities. He was going to do whatever he does to fix ley lines. So as soon as I'm off this, I'm going to go watch that show myself. So coming attractions. Next week, I'm going to be doing a show, and I'll post the time and all of it. It's with Ursula O'Farrell, who runs the Ascension Playground, which is a really fun site where she tries to teach you how to tie to your spirit and energy through creative ways to help you understand your ascension. And she's someone I built a grid with, and she and I were talking about it yesterday, and we've decided we're going to do a series of shows on sacred geometry and how to use it in all the different elements, but in particular from my perspective, how I used it when I first started building grids, and to understand that energy. This Little Light of Mine, that's true. I love that song. That's a kid's song from Sunday school. If you didn't go to Sunday school, you can find it somewhere. It's lots of fun. And Danny and I are going to do the pendulums, but I'm not sure exactly the day because he's still out there messing around with ETs. And then I'm going to have a garden party on the 3rd of March. That's next Thursday. I'm going to have a garden party. I'm going to start explaining the garden from the ground up again for those people who want to learn about that. And I wanted to do it on 3/3 because that's a portal date. And I think that's really important for us. Now, to the second part of the show. That's all my stuff. Oh, okay. And I'm going to switch and bring someone in. Actually, I'm bringing me in. Here I am. Admit me so you can see what I'm looking at. Okay. Now, I normally, as you all know, do not do political readings. By the way, these are the colors of the Ukrainian flag. It's golden blue. And I think it's backwards. I think it should be like this to really be the Ukrainian flag, because I think the gold's on the top and the blue's on the bottom. But anyway, these are crystals I had that are very blue and very golden, so I want to put that there. Love and light to the Ukrainian people. When my son came down and told me a couple nights ago that Russia had crossed and was invading Ukraine, I did a reading. And I do political readings for myself. I just don't do them much publicly. And this question, I want you to understand what the question was. The question is, what is this going to do to Vladimir Putin? I mean, we know it's going to mess up with the people that are on the ground. That's what happens in wars and other things. And I don't care about the geopolitical otherwise. I just want to know individually about him. This card is the past, this is the present, and this is the future. So in the past, this is Putin living with delusions of grandeur, looking out over the seas and saying, I can run the world. I can rule the world. And the middle card is the High Priestess. When I read the High Priestess, I read her as things are happening that I can't see. I'm not allowed to see. It's not what I do. So that's what the High Priestess is about. And so there's hidden things. When I would get this on people's chart, I would say, hey, something's going on. Thank you, Sharon Sipe, for being here. I would see that that there's something going on in that person's life, and somehow or another, even my knowing about it would mess it up. Because sometimes when we know about something, we begin to obsess on it. And if I will tell somebody, oh, you're going to get that job, and they really start obsessing on it, it's the old law of attraction thing of if you worry about something too much, you push it away. So this means that there's, but from his personal perspective, is this like, what's this going to do internally? He things are going on around him he doesn't even begin to understand, and this is his outcome. And I'll pull this up there so you can see it. It's the Five of Pentacles. It's walking away, desolate. I think this is in a man whose life has not been full of the choices I would have made to be a human being. I think this is the one that's going to finally bite him. So for those of you who want to know, if you care, that's my particular reading. And I did share that reading with some other readers that, and I think, he doesn't understand what people like us do. And so we'll see what happens to him. Okay, now, to Lori, who wrote me on the board, she wanted to know how to control her panic and fear. I hope the first two things I showed you will help. And also to Lakeisha, who said you're just going through slow motion at your work. That's grief. That's when our body starts slowing down because we can't process everything that's happening around us. Try it. Breathing will help you. Now, I have someone who wants a past life reading because she wanted to know if her aversion to organized religion comes from a past life. So I'm going to lay out a past life reading. Which, in case you didn't notice, the garden's not out today, so. And this is for Tammy J. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes, the church, okay, the way you read a past life reading, if you want to know, this is what I see. This is a past life, and this is your life now. And in this past life, you tried to work within the structure, you tried to plant the things you needed to know, but they screwed you. Were you a witch? Yeah, you lost everything. That's what these three cards are about. These three cards. I'm not sure where this camera is. I just set this camera up, so I'm getting used to it. You lost everything, and they were of no help to you. You'd planted all your faith in them. Your whole world fell apart, and they were of no support to you. So in this life, you came in saying, I don't want to have to run away from I don't want to have to pick everything up and have planted all my things in one place and then have to move on. You're done with the breaking apart and the endings. So you use your own mind. This card is a card of the mind. It's a card of judgment. And that way you feel more whole. But there's a part of you, because the Ten of Cups being reversed. Ten of Cups reversed is still the Ten of Cups, just not quite as brilliant. But it's because you're psychic. Yes. In this life, you recognize you were psychic again. There's part of you that was taught to reject that, and now you don't feel that's fair or just, so you're just going to go stand, be who you are. You're exactly right. You did have, and somehow or another, I feel like you might have been caught up. It felt like the Catholic Church, but they burn a lot of witches too. I think you were in Europe. I think you were separated from your family unjustly because you were just a healer woman, which is one of those things they used to do. Oh, 51 in the chat. Good. I'm glad y'all are here today. Okay. I've done the outcome. Okay. I will do 3 cards for the outcome for Ukraine as a whole, but there's still a lot of energetic levers, and we need to send as much love and light. The more you can do things like I've done here, put up their flag colors, think about them in love and light, think about them stronger. I heard a story today from Malcolm Nance about a woman in the Ukraine in a babushka in eastern Ukraine, and she went up to these soldiers. They'd captured a Russian soldier, and she put seeds in his pockets, and she said, so that if you get killed, you can at least go do something good. And these people were not letting these guys go. So let's see, can you see him? Knight of Swords. Okay, 2 knights, great. The Ukrainians, I think, are in the long run going to win. They're holding on to their homeland. They're fighting on their own soil. That makes a huge difference. And this is a good card for them. As bad as the card was for Putin, what's going to happen to him universally for Ukraine, I don't think it's going to be quick unless the oligarch's off Putin. And I don't ever read on death, so I can't tell you if that's going to happen or not. But something's very, very wrong in Russia, and these people are really holding on. So send love and light to them. And oh, someone wants to know if this is a yes, no. Okay, we're going to get out we're going to get out my my pendulum sheet. This is for pendulum readings. And I'm going to do a pendulum reading on, get the stones out. I had all day to get ready for this, guys. You would have thought I'd been better together. And I just dropped my pendulum. Excuse me. The older I get, the farther away the floor is from where I need to pick things up from it. Anyway, okay. This pendulum, this way is yes, this way is no. And someone wanted to know if if seniors are going to get more stimulus checks. And I started spinning and then let it find its own way of going when it feels really firm. It says yes, and I think that if you want a stimulus check, get out and vote, guys, because if you let the other side decide, that's not going to happen. But right now, there's a move afoot to get some seniors some more money. And okay, BB is waking up at 3 to 4 in the morning, and she wants to know if her body's just changing or if she's getting messages and guidance from somewhere. So we're going to do that in the dowsing garden. Is BB getting messages? Is that what's going on? Very much so. And it's a right, when Danny and I get to explain this thing, this is how you can tell what your frequency of your vibration is. This is no, this is yes, and you can do percentages and other number things by going around this. Is the 3 to 4 in the morning the time that BB should be writing down notes about what she wakes up seeing, because that's how they're sending her the messages? Straight on to yes. So that's the answer for BB. Now, I didn't see yeah, 3 to 4 in the morning. You can also go on Google and look it up. But there's, okay, I'm going to ditch my reading platform. I know I'll do it here. Waiting room. Okay. 3 to 4, there's a whole Chinese medicine thing. If you wake up at certain times every night, telling you how your body's adjusting to things, telling you how you are how you're assimilating information. And it's all about, there's a whole school of Chinese medicine that does that. What I do, Melissa, and all the other people who are talking about this, I have things already programmed on my phone, and I am such a geek. I have these little flat speakers in the pillow, and I can hit my phone. I've got it all set up, and I will turn on it. I listen to meditations before I listen to them when I'm trying to meditate and get quiet or go back to sleep. And the reason I do that is because I was unfortunately trained by a mother who had too many kids and didn't want to spend all the time encouraging me just to go to the bathroom. So she toilet trained me by running water where I was in the bathroom when I was going to the bathroom. Needless to say, I don't have any fountains in my house. I don't like the sound of running water like that. It makes me nuts. It makes me have to go to the bathroom. It can be hormonal. It can be all kinds of stuff. But you can do, you can. The other thing is, have I ever talked to you guys? I think I've talked about tapping. I'll throw this in as another gizmo to help us, something we can just carry with us. Tapping is actually you're hitting meridian lines on your body, and there's several good things about tapping. You tap like this, and you do self-talk while you go through all those steps. So I know that on the nights when I remember, I will do tapping and say I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep. And I talk to myself about why do I need 8 hours of sleep? Because I have to get up in the morning, I have to start working with people's problems, I have to arrange some grids, I have to do all the things I have to do. And I just gear myself up with tapping. Now, you can find tapping online. I learned tapping by a company I have nothing to do with. It's called Daily Om. Daily and then the big O and a big M. And they have a course in tapping, and it's 20 sessions. And you can set your own price. And I think most of their classes start about $15. But everything I've ever taken from them has been well worth it. And I took this class on tapping, and it's what I did before I started my weight loss. And the woman did a lot of work with weight loss, and I sat through all her sessions on weight loss, and before I knew it, I found a way to start to lose weight and feel good about it and keep going. And yes, you can. Some people just pull it up and start from a dead stop on the chart. The other thing that's on this chart is I did this before the program, but you see it says, do I have permission to dowse? Am I aligned with my higher self, and am I fully protected? I'll show you how to do it because it's easier than me trying to talk about it. Okay, here we go. I'm coming back on. Here we go. Okay. So what you do is when you pull your dowsing stuff out, you put your chart out in front of you and you go, start in the middle. And I always start rotating counterclockwise. It just works better for me, but you just need to practice because some people don't find that works. Do I have permission to dowse? That's the first question. Next question. Am I aligned to my higher spirits? I better be. Okay. Am I fully protected? And this is the one a lot of people will forget, but you got to remember, whenever you're doing any of the things we do, you're opening yourself up. And I know there are readers who say there is no evil in the world, but I think they're just energies that are cleaner than other energies. So, am I fully protected? Yep, and it likes that one the best. It says that's what I'm the best at, is being fully protected. And you want to know more? I'm going to have these charts available for you with all the numbers and an explanation of how to do them. Danny and I, like I said, if he hadn't wandered off into alien land, it's not his fault. It's what he wanted to go do. And he but had he not wandered off into alien land, we would have already have done this show. But it's really important to know where your energy is, because there's days when I wake up and I think I'm really in a good space, but I do a spiritual vibration level check every day, and I keep a little diary to see where I am. And it's kind of amazing when I look at the patterns of what happens with it. And I can always kind of look back at the day before and see what brought me down. When Danny and I were first playing with this, he had his, and he's having a great day, and his vibration was really up there, and he's looking at, he came down and saw some news story, and it just set him off. And he thought, now's a good time to go check my vibrations. He dropped 400 points. You start tying into negative energy, and you will. Yeah, okay. That's a nice thought, Andrea. And I like this. I will have info on how to get the charts. Yeah, a lot of people are putting in how they do their who's the guy who's putting the little devils? Yes, get rid of him. We have a troll. We have a troll. And we don't need them. Yeah, when I look up, that's not what I'm used to seeing in my chats. Let me see if I can go back and see if there's anything that's really popped up that I think needs to be answered. Hi, Vega. The other trick for the middle of the night stuff is this. I learned from Danny. He pulls an oracle card before he goes to bed. He doesn't look at it, but he has it beside the bed. If he wakes up in the middle of the night, it gives him something to look on and concentrate on to go back to sleep. And that's how he programs it to work. And that can help too. Part of getting past the fear is acknowledging it exists. I mean, how could you not be afraid when you look at the toys these people are playing with? Yes, and being unified is important. And let's see. Yeah. Okay. And he Jones, I've been singing. This light of mine, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Yes, a lot of people did subscribe to his, Johann von Wick's, his Fifth Dimension Facebook page. And thank you all for coming, because, man, I'd just be sitting here talking to myself if it weren't for you showing up and giving me encouragement to be here. And I think we're all hugging and loving each other, and we should. I have another thing, I'll pull it out, but it's a friend of mine who I went to school with, and she was a year older than me in grades, and she's put out a thing. She's lost almost everyone she loved in every generation. They've lost a member to war, and she wrote a thing about how to begin to heal, and how to turn that, it's not going to be a positive experience, but how to live with that. And let's see, 62 of you, thank you. Am I taking requests? If you will type your question in bold, I will go to the bottom and look for it. And okay, the troll just doesn't want to go away. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah's got him. Get him off of here. We really don't care about your demonic. The deck I normally read with, which is the one you just saw me reading with, It doesn't have a devil card, nor does it have a death card. Death card is called transformation, and it's a beautiful card. And the devil card is called materialism, because if you think about it, what draws us into devilish activities? Drugs, sex, rock and roll, money, love. Whenever we become obsessed with some passion like that, it's usually to turn our back on spirit. Oh, yes. If you haven't been watching The Changing of the Gods, you can still get in and see the last few. You can go to their website, changingofthegods.com, give them a link, and they will send it to you. I've been watching it on my phone every night. They're about 30 to 40 minutes long, and even as fascinating, they have interviews with some pretty interesting people at the ends. They're doing one show a day, and we're on day 3 tonight. Will be day 3. And it's kind of nice to go watch that. I took that out of my. I think I took it out of my explanations below this show because I wasn't really intending to talk about it, but someone brought it up, and it is very interesting. It's a very good way for you to, if you don't know much about astrology, it's a good way to get an idea of how planets move against each other, and all it's doing is Pluto and Uranus, and it's following all the times they've been squared in opposition or in conjunctions through history, and they both bring massive change. And it's a really good primer for people who say, I don't know much about astrology. When you take one element out in astrology and really study that and look at that and see how this pattern works, all of a sudden a lot of the other stuff astrologers say makes sense. And let's see, I'm not getting any questions. I had people who said they had questions, and they're not showing up. And yes, and last night's was about liberation movements, and I've seen various clips out of all of them. The very first show they ran had a woman talking about the Urunda, the tribe in Africa, and how they have archetype gods that are just like the archetypes that exist in the astrology. I pulled this book down, and I didn't know why I did it this morning, but it's really important. If you like tarot and you like understanding the tarot, I've had this book for over 30 years. I don't know when it was published, but I actually have notes and things in it, and it's by Weiser. And it was published in 1984. It's an old book. It's when I was first out reading Jung and the Tarot. And Jungian psychology believes in archetypes, and they talk a lot about Jung in that show. If you're interested in tarot, it will really give you some fascinating insights into the cards and how to use them and how to understand archetypes. Yes, the Orishis of Bhutan. Yes, that's what she was talking about. And so if you haven't gotten in on it, and if you get in it now, you'll be able to see the last 7, and it will get you ready for, and they're looking at another way it will be distributed. The only way you can see it now is to be on the mailing list for the Changing of the Gods. And I put the word out. I know Scott Allen actually put a whole link thing out on his channel. Yes, and one of the things they talk about is that we're being prepared to be able to break in to find our tribes, where what we do and how archetypes fit together with other people's, and how to move forward. So I'm just trying to hand you a few tools that you can use to help you move forward. And because unless you can sort of see it and feel it physically, and this is one of the reasons why I don't read on that topic that everyone seems like to read on, because to me I can't give you a solution, but I can tell you you have one solution. Learn about who's running for political office around you and go vote. I'm in the middle of primary season here in Texas. And if any of you are in Texas, and I'm sure if you believe differently than this, you won't be watching my channel, except for that clown that showed up with the devil things. Yesterday or the day before, it was reported, and it got all lost in the big international news, but there's a guy who ran ERCOT, which runs an overlay of our power system. And yet a year ago, when everything froze up and everything died, people got enormous power bills. I mean, really, you have no idea, because we are not ready for the kind of temperatures we're having. And this guy testified in a bankruptcy court, and I don't know who's going bankrupt or why they did, but the judge was quizzing him. And the guy who ran ERCOT, the guy who was president of the board, and they set the rates for what we pay for electricity. They went to Governor Abbott, who is currently running, again, to be our governor, and they went to Governor Abbott and said, we need to work a way to parcel this out, because we can't charge people a maximum of what they're getting here, because it's thousands and thousands of dollars. And this guy testified yesterday. Abbott told him to screw us. Charge us that much. He didn't care. He didn't care that we lost 600 people to that cold. And he's running around saying he's the best thing since sliced bread. And this last week he signed an executive order making it an offense that you can be reported to CPS if you're a doctor or a counselor or a parent trying to work with a transsexual child. If you're recognizing that that's a problem they have, then he wants you to be investigated by CPS and potentially lose your kids. He is a piece of work. Vote for Beto. That's all I gotta say. I showed a book about Tarot. Yes, this is the book I showed about Tarot. And I didn't put it in my notes below, but it's Young and the Tarot, and I've looked it up recently. You can still find it. It was written by a woman named Sally Nichols. And I read the whole thing, and I've got notes on every page, and it goes through all the major arcana and how they work. And it was a wonderful book, and it came to me. I found it in the 80s when I was reading a lot at psychic fairs. I found it in a bookstore, though. Okay. Young and the Tarot. Yes. Young and the Tarot. And yes. And it's very enlightening, and if you watch a lot of tarot readers, it will give you a depth of understanding about those cards that you just can't get. When I taught tarot, I would take parts out of that, and I would teach people about specific cards when I felt, especially if I felt that person really needed to know that. So, okay. You can send them love and light. If you're actually working with the child, the best thing you can do with a wounded or hurt child is to let them talk and make them understand that you're willing to listen to what goes on around them. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when Roe v. Wade wasn't legal at all. And I was in college, and I had people who were sexually active, and I remember going to backdoor clinics, and we were fortunate at the time because several of us found a true physician, but he wasn't doing things in a place that was incredibly sterile or where you were protected, or if things went wrong where you could get help. I remember a girl came back to the dorm once, and I ended up calling the ambulance because our house mother wouldn't call the ambulance, because at SMU you don't call an ambulance to a dorm, and I called them, and she was hemorrhaging to death. I had worked around an ER when I was in high school. I mean, it's horrible, horrible, horrible. Those horror stories. But what we need to do is, I worked my hardest. Texas has an ERA amendment, which that's what sort of bites them in the butt when they go after us about this stuff. But there's just a lot of, and you need to know who's politically. This is what I'll tell people. You need to know who's running from the school board on up, your city council, all those people, because that's the training ground for the people that move up in the parties. And if you don't support the people who have good intentions, they can't do it on their own. It requires a group effort, and it requires a group looking at people and helping them learn. And I'm so proud of the people that I helped get elected to city council. I can't tell you. They were wonderful people. They've made a huge difference all over the city, but in particular, there's a city council person who's not going to be able to run again because we have term limits, named Casey Thomas, and he has made such an enormous difference to his community and to the people that lived around him. He lived in a very neglected part of Dallas, and the first thing I did was took him around and let him go see all of the lectures on mass transit and all these things that they never even got the word down there. And I say down there because they're south of where I live. And he's done a marvelous job, and he posted yesterday on his Facebook page, he said, "This is my t-shirt, I'm going to wear it every day," and it says, "If you don't vote, you can't complain." Yep, I mean, there's all these things are wonderful. I hope everybody else is doing well today. It's still cold here in Texas, but it's not raining, so you can actually kind of go outside, but it's still below 30, so I don't go outside. But what I'm working on the shows I told you about I'm working on. I'm trying to work with Jophn and another light worker who wants to, the thing you saw on David Johnson's, who's with David Johnson, to help bring us more sort of field work, light work, where people are out doing something like that. See how that works. I'm trying to collect and gather stories. They just come to me. They just show up, and I take note of them. And like I said, I'm reading on what I'm reading on, which is right now we have to be as responsible as we can be to ourselves, because we're absolutely no good to anyone, curled up in a corner, worried and crying and frantic. But when we can make a movement that can be of help, do it. And do not obsess on, the national news. They're a problem too. Okay. Let's see. Yes, there's been a part of the campaign to get. That's right. And every state, you can go to a place called Ballotpedia. It's like encyclopedia at the end, but it's ballot in the front. And when I went to look at people that I had to vote for in the primaries, all the contested primaries, I looked at all the people on Ballotpedia. And like usually newspapers have something, but they have questionnaires. And when these people don't, okay, wait a minute. But when these people go to the point of putting together a questionnaire so everybody can kind of be in a level playing field, I won't vote for anyone who won't fill out those things. The League of Women Voters has it all over the country. Look for the candidate who takes the time to do that, and then read what they say. Okay. All right, we're going to go back to the pendulums. Tammy Tammy's always got Tammy's got questions. Tammy's got a lot going on, though, so she has a lot of reasons, and they're all personal questions, and they're things that are important to her. So we're going to look at it. Okay. Let's see. Is Tammy's assumption about her aunts correct? It's halfway correct. It's not all of them, because you see it's swinging between yes and no. I don't know if you can see that because my hand's kind of, but it was swinging along here. So some of them are nuts and some of them aren't, but it's just so much disruption. It's actually so much disruption. It's giving me a headache thinking about it. Woo. Okay. That's it. Okay. There's no legal women voters in Hawaii? How interesting. Then I'd try Ballotpedia because they claim they're in all 50 states and the territories. Yeah, well, civics would be lovely. I had no idea how little civics there was. Neither did my youngest son till he went down to do jury duty. He was shocked at how ignorant the people were. School boards are extremely critical. And agree with Jean. I agree about putting bumper stickers on politicians. Also, for the most part, they have to report all of the money they get, except that's what the dark money comes in, and that's like a whole show unto itself. And I'm going to do that over on Sheila's channel, not here. But you can go and see there are records of who gave to everybody, and also how they spend their money. So it's in the Federal Elections Commission. If it's a federal position, they're almost where I live. It's even in Texas where they if you run for a statewide office in Texas, you can get unlimited amounts of money from any donor. That's really obscene, but you still have to report it, and God help you if you don't, and because that used to be the one thing that you could get in trouble for. We have a nonprofit news. Okay. So in Hawaii they have a thing called Civil Beat. I've never run a race in Hawaii. I've been to Hawaii. It's beautiful, but I've never run a race there. Anyway, I'm going to stop this because we're at just about 60 minutes. And I'm hoping everybody carried away a little bit. There's the poem from John Roedel, which I put how to find it in the information below. There's the Innercise book, which has the thing about breathing, but okay. Somebody wants to know if today's a good day to go mortgage hunting. We're going to do that real quick. I'm going to have to work on this. Okay. Is today a good day for Sandra to go look for a mortgage? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it likes that idea. Thank you, Therese Ford. Thank you, Sharon Sipe, for everyone who showed up. Thank you for all people who submitted questions. I hope that helped. Really, I use the 6 deep breaths all the time. And I will let you all go because it's an hour.